So we've gotten through the normal deployment, which, by the way, is perfectly safe to use, now, especially if you scope down the IP address ranges or CIDR blocks so they can access it. However, if your infrastructure is already on AWS, well, we can take security a step further and run our Vault deployment in private mode. Now, when you deploy the Vault on AWS project in private mode, well, it's no longer accessible from the public internet. In fact, the endpoint or URL won't even have a public IP address, making it completely unreachable beyond the private network that the deployment is in. All right, but this sounds like it's completely unreachable now, and it is, until you give other private networks on AWS, also known as VPCs, the ability to access the Vault VPC. And so this is where I kind of have to assume that you have knowledge about AWS, because VPCs are too large of a topic to dive into, and that's an understatement. I do have a guide, though, that I'll link to below that will walk you through VPCs from the basics and help you build one out for the first time so you can understand all of the concepts. So the way this would work is that you'd have other VPCs, so other private networks, in your AWS account that have services and servers all doing their thing, right? So maybe you've got an application for, I don't know, cat photos or something like that, and it all lives in a VPC that you've created, and now you need to store some secret data. Well, the way we connect the Vault VPC to your cat photos application is through VPC peering. All right, and this is an AWS concept. This is where we create a connection between our Vault VPC and the VPC that your cat photo app lives in. Now, if this sounds like a lot, don't worry. It's not. We don't have a ton of prerequisites to do here. In fact, there's only 3 things that we need to do, because again, this project takes care of all of this stuff for you. So the first one is to have all of the prerequisites that we took care of earlier done. So make sure you've done all of those. And by the way, no, you don't need to redo them. We're just going to be reusing the same values. So if you've been following along, and in the previous video, after you got done playing around with Terraform, you did a Terraform destroy, well, you don't need to do any of those other things again. So you don't need to backtrack. So that's the first thing. All of the other prerequisites done. The second thing is to turn private mode on in the project, which is just switching a variable value. And the third thing is to specify the IDs of the VPCs that we want to give access to our Vault deployment. Now, the one catch is that VPCs, these other VPCs, they do need to be in the same AWS account and the same region. Now, I'll explore adding options for cross-account region support in the future, but for now, this is what it is limited to. So what we're going to do in this video is setting up a couple of example VPCs and servers, right? I could just leave it at this, but I want to see how this stuff works, so I assume that you do. So we're going to make these so that I can show you how to properly connect them to the Vault project when it's up and running in private mode. So here I am in my AWS account, and as usual, I am in North Virginia, US East 1. Again, you don't necessarily have to be in that region, but if you're just following along, it's probably simpler to just be where I am. If not, just again, make sure you're in the same region for everything that you're doing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm going to hop over to my text editor here, and I've got the variables file open from our project that just has all the things that you can change and tweak, as well as the default values. And the first thing we need to take note of is this variable right here, the VPC CIDR, the CIDR block for the VPC. So this represents the IP address range that will be carved out in our AWS account for the VPC that we deploy Vault to. The reason we're taking note of this is because the other VPCs that you want to give access to our Vault deployment cannot overlap with this address range. So that's pretty simple to keep in mind. And again, I don't want to get too deep into networking, but this is just part of that RFC 1918 IPv4 address range. So this is a range of addresses, or in a range of addresses, that is reserved for private networks. So anyhow, just figure I'd drop that terminology just in case you're curious for more. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to make 2 VPCs, and in each of those VPCs, we are going to make an EC2 instance. And we're going to do this so you can see the requirements that have to be made for the VPCs that you want to give access to. And also just so we can have a realistic trial to go forward with the private deployment, because, otherwise you just have to take my word for it. And I hate when, I hate when tutorials do that. So let's hop into VPCs. If you don't see this and you're recently visited, then just type VPC and you'll be on your way. So inside of here, we are going to make our first VPC. And if we can ever get here, it's amazing. I'm actually on fiber internet, right? So, okay, here we go. So into VPCs. So into VPCs here, and we see that there's the default VPC that every account gets. And while we could use this one, I want to give you a more fine-grained experience in terms of showing you all of the details. So I'm going to click Create VPC. And in terms of what to name it, you can name whatever you want. I'm going to name it Vault. We'll just call it External 1, right? So super simple here. And for the CIDR block, so what is going to be the IP address range that we give to this VPC? And it needs to be one of the private ranges. And of course, you can read it. You can read more details about this in the VPC guide that I'll be sure to link to below. But we're going to stay simple, and we're going to pick 10.0.0.0/16. Now, for the IPv6 CIDR block, we're going to just leave this off for now, but if you wanted it on, you could. And for the tenancy here, well, you can make that whatever it is that you want. So but just leave it for default if you're following along. So I'm going to click Create. This is going to go and make this VPC. So here we go. Everything is done. Now, there are a lot of options that you can tweak and configure with respect to VPCs, but we only need to change one here. So select the VPC, and we need to turn on DNS host names. So I'm going to click on Edit DNS host names, Enable, and Save. And this is a requirement for VPC peering. And again, VPC peering is just how you connect separate VPCs so that they can speak to each other. So the ultimate end goal being so the resources and those two separate VPCs can speak to each other. All right, so that's the first thing. So the next thing we need to do is we need to make a subnet. So we need to make somewhere, carve out a sub network inside of our main network to launch services into. So I'm going to click Create Subnet. And for the name tag, I'm not going to make it my name. Instead, I'm going to just call this Vault External 1 Subnet. Super creative. And then for the subnet, well, we're going to pick... Man, this is a messy drop down here, isn't it? We're going to pick the VPC we just created. And for the availability zone, I'm going to just leave it as no preference. And for the IPv4 CIDR block, I'm going to make it 10.0.0.0/20, which is just going to be a smaller set of IP address ranges, smaller set of IP addresses within this overall range that we made for the VPC itself. And I'm going to click Create. And so this is going to do its business. We're going to close it. And, we could stop there. However, I want to make some EC2 instances in this VPC so that we can demo that, hey, they can actually reach our Vault deployment that's in an external VPC. So because of that, we need a couple more things. The first thing is an internet gateway. An internet gateway is just how we give our VPC access to the internet at large. So I'm going to create this internet gateway. I'll call this Vault external, if I can spell here, external IGW1. There we go. Sorry, I'm actually, you can't see it, but I'm actually pretty far away from the screen as I'm recording this. So I got to get really close to it to see if I'm typing things. So anyhow, that is done. With that done, we need to select it again and attach it to the VPC we just created. I'm going to click Attach. And with that done, even though we've attached the internet gateway, well, it's still just attached, but it's not doing anything. What we need to do now is go to the route table. So I'm going to select the route table for my new VPC. And we need to go to routes. And right now, the routes the routing inside of our network here is limited to just the network itself. It can't really go outside. To let it go outside, we need to point it. So let me go here, and we need to point it towards 0.0.0/0, which is basically just an IP shorthand for saying towards the internet, and we need to point that towards the internet gateway. And again, if all of this is confusing you and making you sweat, don't worry, just check out that guide below. And also, don't feel like you're out of the loop. VPCs and cloud networking, it is a whole topic in and of itself. So, all right, so I'm going to save routes there. Close it, and so now we've got this next VPC, we've got everything we need for this first VPC. So the next thing we need to do is do this all over again. But before we do it again, I do want to clarify that if you are trying to connect your Vault deployment to another VPC that you have already created, the only thing you've got to do, the only thing you've got to remember is that the IP address cannot overlap and that you have this enable DNS hostname setting created. The internet gateway and the subnet and the routing table stuff we all just did, that is just for the purposes of this demo. So let's create another one, Vault. Wow, my keys are not in the home position, or my fingers aren't in the home position here. Vault external 2, and we're going to make this one at 10.1.0.0/16, and we're going to also leave no IPv6 CIDR block, leave tenancy as default, and then create it. And once we're done with that, we're going to select it again, go to the DNS resolution. Oop, not the DNS resolution. We're going to go to the DNS host names, enable them, click save, and then head back over here to subnets, and we'll make a subnet, and we'll just call this Vault external 2 subnet. And for the VPC, we'll put this in the external 2 one we just made. We'll leave the availability zone as it is. And for the IP CIDR block, we'll make this 10.1.0.0/20 and create it. All right, so we've got that done. We need to do the whole internet gateway thing again. So I'm going to come over here and not select that and just name this one Vault external 2 IGW. And you can name those whatever you want. I'm just naming them here on the fly. I'm not even getting the order right. But the name doesn't really matter all that much. Now I'm going to attach it to the VPC, the new one we just made, Vault external 2. Attach it. Okay, great. And then the last thing to do is come over to this one's routing table. And if you're wondering, well, where did this routing table come from? Well, when you create a VPC, it gets a main routing table. So a default routing table made for it automatically. So that's where this is coming from. And so now we need to do the exact same thing, edit routes, add a route here, point it to the internet gateway, and then save the routes. Okay, perfect. So there we go. Now we have everything that we need done for these VPCs. So now let's hop over and let's make some instances. And these are going to be the instances that are going to be as if they were, applications and services in another network. So I'm going to hop into EC2 here. And again, I've got some links below. If you want to learn more about EC2, I have an EC2 fundamental series up on YouTube that'll walk you through all of this and all of the details about what these are. So we're going to go through it relatively quickly. We're going to stick with Amazon Linux 2. We're going to stick with the T2 Micro. And then on here for the details, we do need to change some things. By default, it wants to launch it in the default network, so the default VPC, and we don't want that. We're going to launch this one in external 1. Now, as for the subnet, we're going to pick the only subnet that's in there. And as for auto-assign public IP address, we do want to enable this. We do want an IP address, otherwise we're not going to be able to reach it. So we're going to leave all this other stuff here alone. Just leave it as is, leave the network interface as is. But down here in user data, we are going to do something. So the user data, this is just a launch script. What happens was when your EC2 instance launches, this script will be run, whatever's in it. And you can make it just a bash script. You can also make it a cloud init script, but we're just going to stick with a bash script. And the way you tell it, hey, this is a bash script, is you use a shebang here. Bin bash, and so now it's going to know that it is a bash script. So what we're going to do here is we are going to input a quick script that's going to just download Vault and get it installed so that we don't have to log in and do that every single time. So to get started here, let's just make a little comment checklist of what we're going to do. We're going to download the Vault bin, then we're going to unzip it, and then we're going to move it. We're going to move it to that USR local bin location so that it can actually be used. Okay, so downloading the Vault bin. So in another tab here, I've got the releases.hashicorp.vault URL open, and these are all the different versions. I'm going to select the latest, so 1.4.0. And for the version, well, we need the Linux AMD 64 version. So this is going to be the version you are going to use. Let me copy this link address. If you select an Amazon Linux 2 and the x86 version, which we did. So we are going to curl it, CURL, however you want to say it. We're going to put the output of the request into a zip file, and then add this link here, and there we go. That will download it, and then we're going to unzip it. Not it. I typed what I said. And then finally, we're just going to move it. We're going to move Vault to the USR local bin, because when this unzip happens, it is going to drop the Vault binary right there. So this will work. Now, if you're wondering, like, well, don't we need to do, sudo? Don't we need to operate as the super user? Well, we do. We are with user data scripts, which is a quick little tidbit of information. Every command run is run as the root user. So there's that. I'm going to actually copy this too. So go ahead and copy it, because we're going to use this exact same little script on the other one. So let's go to next, add storage, leave the default for add tags. Let's make a name tag. Name, we'll call this Vault external 1 instance. Super descriptive. And then for the security group, we are going to create a new security group. And so we're just going to name this Vault external 1 SG. And so the way to think of security groups, they're just firewalls, right? They're just blocking stuff out. And so this one that we're going to create here through the launch wizard is only going to allow SSH access. So, and that's what we want. So review and launch. Everything looks good on my end here. I'm going to click launch, and I'm going to just use this same Vault access key pair that we've been using. So I'm going to launch the instances there. And so what's happening now is I've got that new network that we created over here in VPCs. So Vault external 1, and Vault external 1 is going to get a new instance launched into its subnet here. So the subnet, and if we look at it, we can see that, hey, it doesn't have as many available IP addresses as the other, because one of them's been taken by the instance we've just launched. All right, so there is that. So let's do it again. We're going to make the second one. So select Amazon Linux 2 again, select T2 Micro. This time for the network, we're going to select our external 2 network. We're going to leave the only subnet selected that we have. We're going to make sure that it has a public IP address. And then we're going to come down here, and hopefully you kept that script in your clipboard. And I did. And I'm going to leave that right there. Go to next, add storage. Leave the defaults. We'll give this a name as well. Name, Vault external. All of these autocompletes are messing me up here. 2 instance. All right, there we go. And then for the security group, we are going to create a security group again. So we'll call this Vault external 2 SG. Now, if you're wondering, like, well, why can't we just use the other one? Well, we can't use the other one because security groups are confined to every VPC. So we have to make a new one here. But it's going to do the same thing, allow SSH access. So we're going to review and launch. Click launch, make sure that our Vault access key pair is selected, and launch the instance. And so this will go through here, and to confirm that it's been launched, well, you can watch over here, but we also hop over to our subnets in the VPC and refresh. We will see that now there's one less IP address in the second subnet. And so let's give these a second here. Actually, we don't have to wait for the second one. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. So to confirm that everything is up and running, I'm going to select this instance. And I'm going to copy its public IP address, though you can use the DNS if you want. Now I'm going to hop over to my shell here, and I already have the SSH key set up. So again, we'll make sure you do the earlier prerequisites where we made that EC2 key pair and then added it to our SSH agent. And because of that, I'm going to run SSH EC2 user at the IP address. And of course, it's going to let me in. And once in here, let's make sure Vault is installed. Vault version. Yep, looks good. So because of that, I'm going to exit. So that one's good and ready to go. Let's try the second one. So this time, instead of using the public IP, we'll just use the DNS just for variety, right? And we'll do SSH EC2 user at the DNS. Yes, I'm good with that. And it's going to let us in. We'll do a which vault. Yep, vault version. All right. So we've got everything we need. Let me clear that and exit. All right, so we'll stop there. I know that was probably kind of a flash if you haven't really worked with AWS much. But again, I've got a guide for VPCs, and it goes into networking and all of that stuff, and a very nice laid out analogy comparing it to cities in the links below. And then I also have the EC2 fundamental series as well. And again, what is this simulating? Well, it's simulating a situation where you have in your AWS account 2 other private networks that have servers in them running services, and you want to give them a way to access this new Vault deployment, right? But you might be wondering, well, why don't we just deploy more services into the Vault VPC itself, right? Well, the first up, that's in the documentation, so you can read through why. But in a nutshell, it's to keep that completely isolated, 100% isolated, because that way, since it's usually storing secret data, we can be absolutely sure that no, extra traffic is swimming around and causing shenanigans and whatever. So anyhow, one more time, if this feels like information overload, just make sure you check out those guides. And of course, I also have my website, awsdevops.io, where you can learn about AWS in general.